Welcome to Positive Talk Radio. We're glad you're here. I'm Kevin McDonald, your host for this grand adventure, and I thank you for joining us. You see, our mission is to create a positive, personal connection to all things with courage and love. We invite terrific guests, interesting topics, and great conversation, all in a fun, entertaining way. And we always manage to learn something, too. So I hope you will stay right where you are for this episode of Positive Talk Radio. Hello, everybody. You're listening to Positive Talk Radio, of course, and my name is Kevin McDonald, and today we got a very special guest, and she is teaching you how to do something about nothing, or nothing about something like that, because what she does is she has got a program that she works with, that she is teaches you how to diet without dieting. I'm dying to hear about how this works. And so Sora Vernikoff is her name, correct?
Sora Vernikoff.
Sora, I should have known. So I had a 50% chance of getting that right. That's why I don't gamble, because I'm always wrong.
Sora, a smart thing.
So how are you today?
No complaints. I'm sitting here in Manhattan, 27 degrees, so I'm happy being inside talking to you, Kevin.
Oh, very good. Manhattan, New York City.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you in a high-rise?
Yeah, one of those.
Yeah, it's an expensive place to live.
I mean, yes and no. It's a little crazy here, but, you deal with it.
And you do that with everywhere. So
Exactly.
So tell us about your work and and the reason you've written your book and what you've got out there and your program that you're doing and all of that.
Okay, so for your listening audience, I'd like to begin with how I began. Like Cole Porter said, begin at the beginning. And so over 20 years ago, I used to teach really challenged kids in Brooklyn, New York. These were really tough kids. And it took me a long time, but I learned how to keep them in their seat.
That's a challenge.
I mean, if you can do that, honey, you can do anything. And then after I learned how to manage these children, my students, I always used to, during that time, diet, take off the weight, and then put it back on. And then one day, I looked out at these 35 kids and I said, hey, Sora, how come these kids who walk, talk, and do all those other things listen to you, but food has no animate qualities? You can't stop thinking about it and you can't stop eating. Why? And a voice inside me said, Sora, I want you to stop dieting. I want you to eat whatever foods you want, but you have to journal every experience before, during, and after to see why you think about food all day. So being a glutton for punishment, I decided to take that on, and I did that. I journaled and then some. I lost my 25 pounds, and I've kept them off since 1984. When I reached my goal, I knew that I could transfer my classroom management techniques to food management techniques, and that's how my No Diet Weight Loss program was born. So I owe it all to the kids. Trust me, I paid the price.
Oh yeah. So let me ask you, did you decide or figure out in your journaling what was the reason you were thinking about food all day?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, I couldn't have developed the program without understanding exactly why someone is a compulsive overeater. So what I'd like to share with you is that what I found in my journaling was that no matter how much I ate, nothing was enough. And that was very interesting to me. That nothing I ate was enough. Well, I said, well, Sora, how can you ever stop if you don't know how much is enough? So over time, I developed these techniques, these 2 techniques that I teach in my book, as to how to decide how much is enough before you eat so that you're able to stop. So think of it this way. A person with a weight problem, for your listening audience, a person with a weight problem, if you have a chip in your brain, I have this theory. If you have a chip in your brain and it has 35 squares, and at the end of the day, you take your chip out, you put it in your computer, you print it out. A person without a weight problem has 21 green squares for non-food thoughts and 14 red squares for food thoughts. A person with a weight problem, according to Sora, has 21 red squares for food thoughts and 14 squares for non-food thoughts. So the only reason that a person has a weight problem is that consciously, when that picture comes of a potato chip, because it's all picture-based, of a potato chip, of a piece of cake, of a cookie, he can't stop the visual repetition of that piece of chocolate cake. And so because he can't stop it up here, he can't stop the hand-to-mouth motion. So it all starts here. Then the hand goes down, the hand picks it up. Here's the thought, and here's the food. Here's the thought, here's the food. So I knew that it was my job to figure out how to consciously minimize the number of times a day I thought about food. And that's what my 2 techniques in my book allow you to do.
That's pretty cool.
Well, it really is.
Because I've known people that look forward to all day long, looking forward to that box of Oreo cookies that they have at home. And they're going to sit down and watch a movie and eat a box of Oreo cookies or whatever it is.
Yeah, but they're not really eating Oreo cookies. I mean, they're really, but I usually don't talk about, because you use that example. Well, first of all, everyone's allowed reward. I'm a big self-rewarder. So if you eat that whole box of Oreo cookies, I have no problem with that. But if you tell me you have a weight problem, then you have a problem with that, okay? So everyone's allowed to sit down and eat that box of Oreo cookies in my world. But if you have a weight problem, then the Oreo cookies become what you use to have the weight problem. Number 2, there's nothing wrong with any food. In my program, there's nothing wrong with any food. It's can you eat and stop? Can you eat and stop? So the Oreo cookies, Kevin, is the object of the challenge, not the challenge. What most weight loss programs say is that food is the problem. Food is not, I repeat, food is not the problem. It's the wiring in your brain that can't stop the visual perseveration, the repetition of the food thought, which leads you to put your hand in the bag and up, in the bag and up. It doesn't start in the bag, Kevin. It starts up here.
Is some of that because of what you were taught when you were being brought up?
No.
No?
It's really, no. Well, no. So I'll explain that to you, because it's a great question. We all use food for different reasons, just like people drink for different reasons. Any addiction is never about the object of the addiction. So drinking isn't about drinking, smoking isn't about smoking, and overeating is not about the food. But really, we eat when we're happy, we eat when we're sad, we eat when we're bored. I think, so we're really feeding our emotions. But that's a very blanket answer, and that's not what my specialty is. Although I really understand that very well, that's not what I sell, or that's not what I want to educate people about, because there's a million psychotherapists out there that will take your money that you can cry to. I'm here to teach 2 specific techniques that lets you take this piece of chocolate and know that you run it and it doesn't run you. And once
Oh no, they sometimes they talk to you in a real loud way.
Right, but I talk about that in my book, and you're right, in a real loud way. But what I've done is I've whipped it into shape, just like I did my kids.
By the way, you're delightful, I just have to say. You're a lot of fun.
Well, you know what? I can laugh now because the party's over.
Yeah. So now, but you now have figured out over the last 20 years how to eat sensibly and
now chalk that word. Kevin, as long as you think I'm a delight, I'm going to take license here.
You can.
Forget sensibly. No one eats sensibly. I mean, people on Weight Watchers think they're eating sensibly, and then they lose the weight, and 97% regain the weight in 2 years. Yep. So sensibly is a very culturally different word. Oh, you eat sensibly. You're a good person. You're in control. Yeah, you're in control eating what other people tell you to eat. I'm an anarchist in many ways, okay? And I say, I am. And I say that if you want to eat, have exactly, and I mean, if you want chocolate cake all day, go for it. You want Oreo cookies all day, go for it. But use my technique so you're able to stop. And I guarantee that once you can stop, you won't want the Oreos all day. You'll want to eat more healthy, but I'm not going to sell healthy eating. I'm not going to educate people into healthy eating, because a compulsive eater, when they put that food in their mouth, it has nothing to do with food. So what I want to say is, here's the chocolate bar. You can eat it all day, but show me you can stop. So I'm a behaviorist, I'm a behaviorist.
So you can convince people, well, not even convince them, but in your program, they learn. Well, it's a learned response, isn't it?
Well, I don't convince any. See, I'm not a convincer. I'm an educator. That's my specialty. I'm an educator. Whenever there's a challenge, I'm going to find a way to educate others. I don't want to convince you to do anything, Kevin. What I want to do is show you. First, I can show you why diets don't work, and then I can teach you and your audience the green technique and show you how you can stop anytime you have food. Once you learn how to stop, you're going to think less about food and eat less food. But I'd like to start to show your listeners why diets don't work in a very simple way. Can I do that?
Of course.
Okay. So I want you and your listeners to think of a diet as a clock, all right? So we have a clock. So let's start at 12 o'clock. Oh my goodness, I'm getting married. I have to wear a dress. I want to book a cruise. I have to lose weight. I want to buy new clothes. I have to lose weight. I have a job interview. I want to lose weight. So you think, okay, I have to go on a diet, because that's what America sells. American runs on Dunkin', American runs on dieting. So you go and you Google and you look for the best diet. But like I like to say, Kevin, what I really like to say, if diets work, why would you need hundreds and hundreds of diets on the internet? Because diets don't work. So let me show you why diets don't work. So now you're at 12 o'clock. You say, okay, this looks good. I think I'll pick this diet. So you go on these rules. These rules tell you what to have, what not to have, how much to have, maybe when to have what, and don't think about food, because you can't trust yourself. That's what brought you to us in the first place, that you can't trust yourself. Now let's get to 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, a day later, a couple of days later, you go, wow, I'm good. I'm so good because I followed these rules. And now I'm a worthy person. I can buy a new dress. I can book a cruise. I can find a boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever you want. And I'm really worth something because I'm following these rules up at 12 o'clock. Now, let's go to 6 o'clock. You've been on the diet a day, 2 days, 5 days, a week, and you can't take it anymore. You go, I only want one more piece of bread, one more piece of American cheese. You know what? I can handle the Oreos. I'm going to have 3 or 5 Oreos and I can stop. But what happens is you eat half the bread, a few pieces of cheese, and you polish off the bag of Oreos. So that brings us, that was at 6 o'clock. Now, the irony is, which your listeners, I hope, really take away from this, is that you used the only behavior that you could to take the control back from the diet you chose at 12 o'clock. They made the rules. You chose to follow it. And at 6 o'clock, hey, man, you can't follow it anymore. And you're running away. So you did the only thing you could do. So what happens? You took the only thing you could do was binge, okay, to get back the control. And then what do? You beat yourself up. Look what I just did.
Have you been in my house? Anyway, go ahead.
No, I think not. So beat yourself up. Look what I just did. I can't trust myself. I say I want to lose weight. I follow the rules, but then I can't take it. And now I really hate myself because I couldn't follow their rules. So what happens? You go to 9 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, you decide, well, look what I just did. I have to go back on the diet. So you go back on the diet to 12 o'clock, knowing full well in the back of your mind, there's another binge waiting to happen. So this is why diets don't work. 1, 2, and 3, they're not your rules. That's 1, 2, and 3. 4, 5, 6, and 7 they're based on deprivation. because you're not having what you want in the amount that you want. And so diets don't work. It just don't work because it's a bureaucracy. It's a $6 billion a year bureaucracy. It tells you not to trust yourself. Listen to our rules and you'll be good and you'll get thin and healthy and someone will like you. But in the meantime, it's very hard to follow other people's rules, without wanting what you want, So that's why diets don't work. Now, what did I develop that lets you bypass all of that terrible stuff? Because I'm not about deprivation. And that is, I have 2 techniques in my book. The name of my book is Eat What You Want, Stop When You Want, a No Diet Weight Loss Program. And I'm going to teach your listeners how to use the green technique. Is that okay for you?
That's perfectly fine. It might teach me something too. That'd be nice.
Well, if I can't teach you this, then I'm not a good enough teacher, and I'm wonderful.
I'm a bad student then. So go ahead.
Yeah, but I like bad students because they're my challenge always. So I want you to tell me, what's the food that's hardest for you to eat and stop?
Probably steak. I like steak.
All right. Steak. All right. Now I want all of your listeners to pick a food that's hard for them to eat and stop. Mine was chocolate. Okay.
I'll give you a good friend of mine. Chocolate cake. He cannot pass up, even when he goes to a restaurant, he cannot pass up a chocolate. He had one that was like this high, and he ate the entire thing in one sitting.
Well, he has a problem. So, but that's his problem. But now you know me, and so you can tell him to buy my book, and he can manage his problem. Or you can give it to him for Christmas.
I will. It's a good idea.
Just say, hey, I had this guest on my show, and step out in faith, give it a read. Let me know what you think.
There you go.
So, okay. So this is your, I'm sorry, you didn't want steak. What did you want?
Well, we'll call it chocolate cake because I like chocolate cake too.
Okay. So I'm going to say this is a candy bar for me, a Hershey candy bar. So now I want you and all of your listeners, I want you to look at your chocolate cake, Kevin. Let's pretend. Now, is there a one slice in front of you? Is that how it goes? Is there a slice of chocolate cake in front of you?
That's a relative term because a slice for me is not necessarily a slice for any other human.
Okay, so I have to ask some questions then. Are you talking about a cake that you keep in your house where you then go and get a slice?
No, I'm talking about going to a restaurant. I mean, you buy this. There's one restaurant. You buy this. It's an 8-layer chocolate cake. You can't eat it all at one sitting.
Okay.
So you take it home and then you go after it.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about chocolate cake in the restaurant. All of the work in this program is done before you eat. Before you touch that cake, all of the work is done for you to have management. So I want you to look at that slice of cake in front of you, Richard. Kevin, sorry.
It's all right. I'll answer me.
You look like a Richard to me.
I'll answer to anything. Just don't call me late for dinner.
Okay, so Kevin, I want you to look at that slice of cake, and you're in the restaurant. I want you to ask yourself 2 questions. How much is enough and how much is too much? And then I want you to physically separate those 2 amounts. So Kevin, do that now. I want you to pretend, and I want all your listeners to think about the food that's in front of them, ask themselves, how much is enough? How much is too much? And then separate those 2 amounts on your plate. Richard, do that now.
Yeah, see, it actually works out really well because this particular restaurant gives you to-go boxes at the same time because they know you can't eat it all. So I'll put half of it, I'll take half of it and put it in a to-go box and close the lid.
Okay, excellent. So I have a question. Does the to-go box come when they place the cake on the table?
If I ask them to, yeah, because they...
Oh, okay. All right. So don't ask them for the box yet. Not yet. Let me show you. So now you have 2 pieces of cake in front of you. You have one piece that you decided was enough. And then you had another piece that you decided was too much. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Now I want you to pretend to eat, and I want all your listeners to pretend to eat the amount that they decided was enough, but not your marker. So let's have a moment to pretend.
Okay, I've just eaten the half that I determined was what I was going to eat today.
Correct. Now I want you to look at your marker, the amount that was too much, and I want you to say, I just ate and stopped. Your marker lets you know that you had enough and you could stop yourself.
I just ate and that's enough.
Right. So your marker is the amount that lets you know that you had enough. Before you had this call with me, you didn't know how much was enough because you never decided how much was enough before you ate. Now, for the first time in your life, you decided consciously that half that cake was enough and half was too much. And the marker lets you know that. Now
go ahead.
Okay, so you have that concept in your mind?
I do, and I'm beginning to understand it because you're making a conscious choice before you even sit down to eat it. And when they put it in front of you, you say, this is a lot of food. There's a particular restaurant that I'm thinking about, and they serve a ton of food. And it's like, this is a lot of food. I don't need this much. I'll be happy with this.
Well, you see, you use words that, if you really want to use my program, then you need to use the word, this is enough. Because enough is about self-satisfaction. And that's what people who overeat don't have. There's no satisfaction. Because, Kevin, when nothing is enough, can you stop yourself?
No.
No. Exactly. You just answered your own question. Kevin, when nothing is enough, you don't have the choice to stop. So until you can identify the amount that you decided was enough, nothing is enough.
And that you can use that in anything in life.
Well, I also have other programs, and I'm writing another book on everything else in life.
because that is so true. If you can't set your own boundaries of what's going to work for you and what's not going to work for you.
No. What's enough and what's not enough.
Okay, I'll learn that.
Yes, if you learn, can I tell you, Kevin, if you take away for the rest of your life, when you sit in front of food and you say, how much is enough, how much is too much, and push the amount that's too much away, hold your marker, you will be in control of food for the rest of your life. Now, and once you do that, you're going to think less about food and want less. Because what happens, Kevin, when you have enough of something? Do you want more or do you want less?
No, if you've got enough, you've got enough, and sometimes you might even want a little bit less.
Exactly, and that's how the program works. Every time you commit to this process, you're telling yourself, I can give myself enough, and like in a month when you go to that restaurant, maybe 2/3 of that cake will be too much. That's how it goes. Okay, now you might say, but Sora, I have my marker in front of me, half the cake. That's my marker. I want more. I don't want you to be afraid of the cake. That's my mission in life, for people not to be afraid of food. So you take your marker and you do the same thing again. How much is enough? How much is too much? Let's say you want a half of the marker. So you physically separate the half that's also enough of the marker, and you leave over the marker here, and then you can eat the marker. But you may never eat the marker. You may never eat the marker. So let's say you buy an ice cream sandwich. You can take a little scratch off under your fingernail. You must have a marker. You have a chocolate bar. You scrape off a little under your fingernail. You must have a marker, because, Kevin, no marker, nothing is enough. You didn't satisfy yourself. You didn't know when to stop, and you're out of control, according to Sora.
Well, according to Kevin, this is what happens, and this is what happened that particular day, is because we didn't separate it, the chocolate cake, as we sat there and talked, because this fellow of mine, he was like, oh, that's all I can do. That's enough. I'm going to have to get a to-go box for the rest of it. And then we sat there and talked, had a cup of coffee, and he started nibbling. By the time he was done nibbling, the second half was gone.
Because Kevin, because nothing was enough.
Right.
Because there's no boundary between his sense of self-satisfaction and the chocolate cake. And I promise you, if there was another piece of cake on the table and you sat and talked for another half an hour, he would eat the second piece of cake.
He would have.
Right, because nothing was enough. So what I educate people, what I choose to commit to is to educate people that they can give themselves enough of the food that they want by deciding always before they eat how much is enough and how much is too much. And then never eat the marker, never. You can take some of the food from the marker, but you have to always leave a new marker. No marker, nothing is enough, you're not in control.
That is so true. Now, how do you help people that go to like a buffet restaurant? Because
Very simple. Very simple. Okay, you go to a buffet. Well, first of all, Kevin, you have to decide. I mean, I know this sounds very trite, but you have to decide if you want to lose weight or not. You know, you have to decide. You have to make a conscious choice. You have to say, hey, you know, it's time. You know, I want to get healthier. I want to make friends with food. You know, that's what I'm about. I teach people how to make friends with food, because right now, anyone with a weight problem, food is your enemy because you're not in control. I mean, you know, food is your nemesis because you can't trust yourself around it. So let's say you go to a buffet. First of all, I've traveled the world. I don't want to sound snotty, but I've been to a lot of restaurants in my life.
You don't sound snotty at all.
So I've had so much food in front of me, it's like almost frightening. But I'm going to tell you the trick on how to do that. First of all, let's keep it really simple. I want to be thin. So food, you know, food is not that important to me anymore because I want to be thin. So when I go to a restaurant or go travel or go to a buffet dinner, I ask myself one question. What's more important for me? Being here with these people, having this adventure, or the food on the table? That's number one. So for me, it's the adventure, meeting new people, traveling. It's not the food on the table. Number two, the way I control eating at a buffet is I always eat the same boring things. So I'll use a marker for everything. So let's say for teaching purposes, because I'm an educator, let's say I always skip the appetizers because I want to have the main meal probably in a dessert. So what I always look for is the chicken, because chicken with a marker for me is not that exciting anymore. And that'll keep me focused on the weight, on not being excited. See, because if I start trying everything, I mean, I'm able to try now with markers because I've been doing this for decades. But if you're starting out, you say, which is the most boring food on this table? And let's say it's steak for you, Kevin, because you've eaten a lot of steak. So take a piece of steak, but before you take the steak, take a baked potato and take a vegetable. I'm going to teach you how to do this. You put everything on your plate, and then you're doing my program. So you have to look at the steak and say, how much is enough? How much is too much? Then you pick a time on a clock and you put your marker up at the clock. Then you ask yourself how much of the potato is enough and how much is too much. And so you put your marker up on top. Then you ask yourself how much of the broccoli is enough, how much is too much. So you have 3 markers up at 12 o'clock. Now everything in that plate is enough. You can eat everything that you decided was enough, but not your markers. That lets you know that you ate and stopped. Now, then I would say to you, if you're my client, the table is there, the food is there, but what do you want more? Do you want your weight loss or do you want more food on the table? And that's something I can't answer for you. So if you really want the weight loss, then you engage in a conversation with the person next to you and you just keep talking and you don't eat anymore. Or if you want dessert, you go to the dessert table and you pick one dessert that you think is the most boring, because it's easy for you to stop. So let's say all your life you ate sponge cake. I'm just saying. And so if sponge cake was there, I would take the sponge cake and ask myself, how much is enough? How much is too much? And because sponge cake is boring to you, you'll probably have less than more. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you really have to always ask yourself, Should I go back up there or start another conversation? Should I go up there or start another conversation? Do I want to be thin or do I want to keep eating? So you really have to always ask yourself when you deal with food, what's more important to me? Do I want to lose the weight or do I want to have more food? And that's a very personal decision. But what my program does do is gives you immediate control over the food, whether you want to lose weight or not, immediate control. And that's what I'm about. I want to know that when I walk in a room and I see 100 things on a table, that I can choose what I want and eat and stop. That was my goal decades ago, and it's my goal now. And that's what I'm about.
And honestly, that really is the difference most of the time between somebody who's heavier and somebody who is thin. Now, metabolism plays a role and all that kind of stuff, but well, now I'm gonna quibble a little bit because my cousin or my brother-in-law can eat anything and everything, 3 meals a day, all that, and he never gains a pound.
Okay, but just remember one thing: it's all about the picture.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not about the food. If you can understand, when you look at that food, Kevin, it's not the food is not the problem. It's the picture. Because it's steak. Watch this. Steak, 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 steak. Now watch this. Oh, I see a steak. I want a steak. I took the steak. How much is enough? How much is too much? Divide it. Oh, only one steak picture because I fed myself enough.
Gotcha. It's wonderful that you put this together and you've been using it for a long time. And I was looking at your website. By the way, your website is?
Oh, my website's www.nodieting.net. And the name of my book is Eat What You Want, Stop When You Want, a No Diet Weight Loss Program. And it's available through my website, on Amazon, and on Barnes & Nobles.
And I was looking at your media page, and you've got all kinds of recommendations that people and PhDs and some pretty smart folks have said that your system works really, really well. So,
I come from Brooklyn, and I got to do things good. So this took me. It took me years to heal myself. It took me years and years of clients to understand how to teach it. And then it took years to write the book. And then I love my work. I love it because now I run food. It doesn't run me.
You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to invite you back onto another show that I do on KKNW 1150 AM in Seattle. I'll be in touch. I'll be in touch, and we'll book that show for you to come on, because I think you provide a very unique perspective on what is, and this time of year everybody's doing a New Year's resolution to lose weight and stuff, and that doesn't, it hardly ever, as a matter of fact, it never works.
Well, how can it work, Kevin, when you're asking people to deny and deprive themselves? I mean, seriously.
No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So give me your email address, and not your email address, but your website address again, and the book.
Okay, www.nodieting.net, and I can be contacted on the contact page. And the name of my book, if you'd like, I can hold it up. I have a copy right here. Yeah,
I'm sure you would.
This is my book.
And it's a workbook, so it's something that you can work. You write down and you journal with it, and you do all that. It's a beautiful. It's
really. Let me tell you something. I taught the most challenged kids, and my goal was to write this book for anyone. And trust me, I don't care what your level of education. I don't care what you think you know and don't know. This book is so simple. It's just so simple, and it allows you to interactively learn the techniques, the green technique, the red technique, and it's a lot of fun. And you're going to keep saying, oh my goodness, and I just love it. So it's Eat What You Want, Stop When You Want, a No Diet Weight Loss Program. And it's a workbook. It's 8 by 5 by 11.
Very nice. And we've been talking with Sora. Your last name, please.
Vernikoff.
Vernikoff. Yeah, it's Sora Vernikoff, and I have to go to the dentist now. So, but I would love to, I'm not kidding either. But I would love to talk to you again, and we'll do it on KKNW. It'll be fun.
That sounds great. I'm always up for preaching the gospel on getting that chocolate bar.
Exactly. So,
right.
anything you'd like to tell our audience before we go?
Yeah, I would like to tell all your listeners that I know that you can do it, guys, but you have to want it. And this is my favorite quote: inch by inch, anything's a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard. Start by getting a copy of the book and committing to stepping out in faith. And I believe in you, but you got to believe in yourself. So go get them. Go get them. Go get that chocolate bar.
You sound like an educator. You talk like an educator.
I walk and talk like one. I am so an educator. Look at my book. I mean, my book is like such an educator book.
Well, and in case somebody hasn't noticed, I'm just looking at your earrings.
Oh, yeah.
The question mark and the exclamation point.
This is always so I remember. This is to always remember to ask myself how much is enough and how much is too much.
Very good. Very good. Sometimes you need to have that kind of reminder.
Oh yeah, I have the question mark. I put it in ink on my watch as well.
Very nice. Very nice. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
All right.
Today.
You take care.
I will, and you do the same, and we'll all be in touch. So, by the way, everybody, take care of each other, because each other's all we got. We'll see you next time on My Independence Report. Take care. Hey, and thanks for listening to this episode all the way to the end. Hey, pretty cool. Hey, don't forget to follow us so you can receive regular updates and new posts. And remember, take care of each other, because each other's all we got. See you next time on My Independence Report.